Good evening, everyone. I'm Professor Richard D. Wolff, and tonight we're going to talk about something that has sent shockwaves through the geopolitical world, an event that's not merely military, but deeply economic and political in its implications. Just imagine it. Tel Aviv, the economic and technological heart of Israel, paralyzed, not by a cyber attack or financial crisis, but by a drone launched from Yemen, a single relatively inexpensive drone that managed to pierce one of the most advanced defense systems in the world. This isn't just a headline, it's a symbol, a warning, and a reflection of the new global order that's taking shape before our eyes. Tel Aviv, a city often described as the beating heart of Israel's innovation and economic might, has found itself shaken to the core. A Yemeni drone, small in size but enormous in symbolic impact, managed to breach Israel's advanced air defense network, sending shockwaves not only through Tel Aviv but across the entire geopolitical landscape. The city that once stood as a symbol of security, technology, and modern resilience was brought to a sudden halt. Sirens blared, flights were suspended, and panic rippled through a population accustomed to the idea that its defenses were impenetrable. The event was not merely an attack, it was a moment of reckoning, a reminder that no nation, no matter how fortified, is immune to the unpredictable realities of modern warfare. The psychological effect was as powerful as the physical damage. For decades, Israel has maintained a reputation for its Iron Dome and cutting-edge intelligence apparatus, often cited as one of the most sophisticated in the world. Yet this single drone, likely built at a fraction of the cost of a single interceptor missile, slipped through that web. It didn't just challenge Israel's security systems, it challenged the very perception of invulnerability. For a nation whose confidence in its defense has long been tied to its identity and global standing, this moment struck deep. The scene unfolding in Tel Aviv wasn't simply about airspace being breached, it was about the realization that the rules of warfare have changed. The images from that night were startling. The once bustling financial district momentarily frozen, emergency services racing through empty streets, and citizens glued to their phones trying to make sense of what had happened. For the first time in years, Tel Aviv, the city that rarely sleeps, was subdued, its rhythm disrupted by a force far removed from its borders. This was not a conventional attack, it was an asymmetric message, precise, psychological, and symbolic. Yemen, a nation ravaged by war and economic collapse, had reached out and touched one of the most fortified cities on earth. That alone tells a powerful story. Technology has flattened the hierarchy of power. The implications go far beyond military embarrassment. Israel's defense systems, long a source of pride and a lucrative export industry, suddenly appeared vulnerable. Investors felt the tremor, insurance markets reacted, and policymakers scrambled to manage both public fear and international scrutiny. The attack revealed a new dimension of warfare, one where the battlefield is no longer limited by geography or cost. A drone, inexpensive and remotely guided, can now deliver not only physical damage but also political and economic disruption on a global scale. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of this incident is its symbolism. Tel Aviv represents progress, prosperity, and technological superiority, yet for a brief moment it was brought to its knees by something built with limited resources but immense intent. It serves as a stark reminder that in today's interconnected and digitized world, even the mightiest can be humbled by the smallest. The shockwave that rippled through Tel Aviv was not just an explosion in the sky. It was a fracture in the myth of absolute security, a moment that forced Israel, and indeed the world, to confront the uncomfortable truth that dominance no longer guarantees safety. The rise of asymmetrical power has emerged as one of the defining realities of our era, a shift so profound that it has rewritten the traditional script of military and political dominance. For decades, power was measured by the size of armies, the range of missiles, and the sophistication of technology. But now the balance has tilted. The recent incident involving a Yemeni drone striking Tel Aviv underscores this transformation with startling clarity. A weapon that cost mere thousands of dollars was able to outmaneuver systems built with billions. It is a story not only of technological disruption, but of economic and political recalibration. The age when power was monopolized by wealthy nations is rapidly fading. In its place rises a new paradigm where determination, innovation, and adaptability can outweigh material might. What makes this shift so remarkable is how it challenges the entire logic of modern defense strategy. Nations have long operated under the assumption that superiority in resources equates to superiority in power. Israel's defense industry, among the most advanced in the world, is built on that very assumption. Yet the drone from Yemen shattered that narrative. This was not just a strike, it was a revelation that the tools of war have been democratized. The monopoly of power once held by industrialized states has been broken. With access to modern technology, even small or impoverished nations can now project strength on a global scale. This is the new geometry of conflict: flat, decentralized, and unpredictable. In asymmetric warfare, power no longer lies in mass or scale, but in creativity, intelligence, and the element of surprise. Drones, cyber tools, and AI driven tactics have become the new equalizers. They are cheap, mobile, and devastatingly effective. This means that the old idea of dominance, the belief that superior funding guarantees victory, no longer holds. The weak have found new weapons, and the strong have found new vulnerabilities. When a single drone can breach $1 billion defense system, the message is loud and clear. Power is no longer about how much you have, but how strategically you use what little you possess. This shift extends beyond the battlefield. Economically and politically, asymmetrical power disrupts the traditional world order. The nations once considered peripheral or powerless are now capable of shaping global events, influencing markets, and commanding media attention. The psychological impact of such acts often outweighs the physical damage. They erode confidence, destabilize economies, and force powerful nations into defensive positions, not because of military defeat, but because of narrative disruption. The world is no longer divided between superpowers and subordinates. It is a network of actors, each capable of punching far above its weight. What makes this phenomenon so captivating and unsettling is its unpredictability. Asymmetrical power thrives in uncertainty. It rewards those who think differently, who innovate under pressure, and who exploit the gaps left by traditional systems. The attack on Tel Aviv was a textbook example of that mindset. It was not a show of brute force, but of strategic intelligence, a reminder that in the 21st century, wars are won not only with weapons, but with ideas. The rise of asymmetrical power signals a future where dominance will belong not to those with the deepest pockets, but to those with the sharpest minds and the most unyielding resolve. The moment the Yemeni drone struck Tel Aviv, the blast was felt not only in the air, but deep within Israel's economic core. Markets trembled, investors panicked, and a sudden wave of uncertainty swept across the region. What began as a military shock quickly evolved into an economic earthquake. Tel Aviv, often hailed as the financial heartbeat of Israel and the tech capital of the Middle East, suddenly found itself paralyzed. not merely by the physical attack, but by the ripple effects it sent through the veins of commerce and global finance. The drone didn't just breach Israel's defenses, it pierced the illusion of economic stability that had long served as a cornerstone of Israel's national strength. Within hours, stock traders were glued to their screens, watching indexes dip and foreign investors retreat into caution. Insurance firms scrambled to reassess risks, while energy and logistics companies braced for disruptions. The attack exposed a critical vulnerability: how tightly economic confidence is bound to perceptions of security. In a country where innovation, investment, and global trade thrive on the promise of safety and predictability, that promise was shaken. Even a brief suspension of operations in Tel Aviv, flights halted, businesses closed, public transport disrupted, sent a clear signal to global markets that Israel's financial hub, once thought untouchable, could be brought to a standstill by forces far beyond its borders. The psychological impact was just as severe as the financial one. Investors, both domestic and international, began to question the long-term resilience of a market that could be so easily destabilized. For years, Israel's economy had been buoyed by its reputation as a secure haven for technological innovation and foreign investment, despite the ongoing regional conflicts. But this event shattered that narrative. The attack made it clear that no amount of technological advancement or military expenditure can fully insulate a nation from economic vulnerability. It showed that modern economies are built not just on infrastructure and policy, but on confidence. And confidence, once fractured, takes far longer to rebuild than a damaged building or system. The tremors extended beyond Israel's borders. Global investors began evaluating the risks of interconnected markets and supply chains. With Israel playing a pivotal role in high-tech manufacturing, cybersecurity, and defense technology, the attack raised concerns about how such disruptions could echo through international industries. In boardrooms from London to New York, discussions quickly turned from profits to protection, not only physical security, but financial resilience. The global economy, already fragile from inflation and geopolitical tensions, suddenly had a new variable to consider: the unpredictable nature of asymmetric conflict and its power to shake economic foundations. What makes this incident so profound is its reminder that in today's world, warfare is no longer confined to battlefields. It reverberates through stock exchanges, energy grids, and digital networks. The cost of war is now measured not only in human lives or infrastructure, but in the confidence of markets and the stability of currencies. When Tel Aviv froze, it wasn't just a city under attack, it was a financial ecosystem exposed. And that exposure sent a chilling message to the world. In the modern age, economic power is as fragile as the perception that sustains it. Yemen's message to the world has never been louder, clearer, or more unexpected. For years, Yemen has been portrayed as a nation defined by devastation, a country scarred by conflict, famine, and foreign intervention. Yet, in a single calculated act, it managed to send a shockwave that echoed far beyond its borders. The drone strike that paralyzed Tel Aviv was more than a tactical maneuver. It was a symbolic declaration. It was Yemen's way of saying to the world, "You may have overlooked us, but we are not powerless." This was a statement written not with words, but with precision and defiance, a moment where a nation long seen as a victim of global politics suddenly redefined its place in that very arena. For decades, Yemen has endured the weight of war and economic isolation, its people suffering under the crushing consequences of blockades and foreign interference. Yet from those ruins, ingenuity and resilience have emerged. The drone that reached Tel Aviv was not just a piece of machinery, it was a manifestation of innovation born from desperation, of intelligence honed in hardship. Yemen's message was as much about capability as it was about courage. The world has often equated poverty with weakness, but this event shattered that perception. It showed that strength is not always measured in wealth or resources, but in willpower, strategy, and the unyielding desire to resist domination. The geopolitical significance of this act cannot be overstated. By breaching one of the world's most fortified defense networks, Yemen positioned itself as a new kind of actor in global politics, one that does not rely on traditional power structures to make an impact. The attack was a direct challenge to the notion that military and economic superiority guarantee control. It was a moment of recalibration, where the so-called powerless reminded the powerful that technology has leveled the playing field. And in doing so, Yemen didn't just challenge Israel's defense systems, it challenged the entire global hierarchy that keeps certain nations subjugated while others dictate terms. The psychological ripple effects were profound. Around the world, observers began to question what this meant for the future of warfare and diplomacy. Could small nations, long marginalized and battered, now command global attention through strategic precision rather than brute force? Yemen's actions suggest the answer is yes. The message to world powers is stark. The old dynamics of control are crumbling. The tools of influence, once monopolized by a few, are now accessible to many. And in that accessibility lies the seed of a new global order, one where defiance can no longer be dismissed as desperation. At its core, Yemen's message is one of transformation. It speaks to the resilience of nations that have been silenced, the ingenuity of people pushed to the edge, and the evolving nature of global power. From the ashes of destruction, Yemen has managed to project strength in a way that even the most advanced nations could not anticipate. The drone that crossed the skies toward Tel Aviv was more than a weapon. It was a message carried on wings of resistance, a reminder that the world can no longer ignore the voices rising from the margins. Yemen has proven that power in the 21st century is no longer defined by might alone, but by the courage to challenge the impossible. Technology has always been hailed as humanity's greatest triumph, the force that propels progress, strengthens nations, and connects the world. Yet, as recent events in Tel Aviv revealed, that same force can swiftly turn against its creators. The Yemeni drone strike was not just a demonstration of defiance, it was a vivid illustration of how technology, the very tool that powers Israel's economic and military dominance, has become a double-edged sword. The systems designed to protect and empower have, in an ironic twist of fate, equipped even the world's most marginalized nations with the means to challenge global powers. In this paradox lies a profound truth. The tools of innovation do not belong to one side forever. Once released into the world, they evolve beyond control, reshaping the balance of power in ways no one can fully predict. Israel, long celebrated for its high-tech industry and defense innovation, stands as a symbol of technological sophistication. Its economy thrives on digital advancement, cyber defense, and artificial intelligence. Yet those same advancements have also become its vulnerabilities. The drone that bypassed its billion-dollar defense network was not born in a laboratory funded by a superpower. It was crafted through ingenuity and necessity. This reversal of power captures the essence of technology's dual nature. It empowers, but it also equalizes. Every advancement made in one corner of the world inevitably spreads to another, often into the hands of those it was originally designed to protect against. What was once a tool of dominance has now become a weapon of defiance. This new reality is not limited to military affairs. Across the globe, we are witnessing how technology undermines the hierarchies it once reinforced. Information, surveillance, and automation, once tightly controlled by governments and corporations, have become accessible to individuals and small groups capable of wielding them with unexpected impact. In Yemen's case, this accessibility transformed a nation burdened by economic despair into a strategic innovator. It proved that in the age of digital interconnectedness, knowledge and creativity can outweigh wealth and infrastructure. The line between the technologically superior and the technologically subversive has blurred beyond recognition. The irony is striking. The same technological revolution that fueled Israel's prosperity has now enabled its adversaries. The diffusion of innovation has dismantled the monopoly of might. What was once a fortress of exclusive knowledge is now a global marketplace of ideas, blueprints, and digital tools. Technology no longer respects borders or intentions. Its accessibility ensures that power, once concentrated, is now scattered, unpredictable, and uncontrollable. In essence, every breakthrough carries within it the potential for backlash. Every innovation designed for security contains the seeds of its own disruption. The drone over Tel Aviv was more than a military intrusion. It was a metaphor for the age we live in. It symbolized how progress, when unchecked, becomes its own opposition. It revealed a future in which power can no longer be hoarded, where technology acts as both shield and sword, protecting some while empowering others to strike. The message was unmistakable. In the 21st century, mastery of technology is no longer about possession, but about adaptation. Those who fail to anticipate its reversals will inevitably fall victim to the very systems they created. The double-edged nature of technology ensures that every advantage is temporary, every dominance fragile, and every innovation a potential threat waiting to take flight. The drone strike that paralyzed Tel Aviv was not just an isolated incident, it was a wake-up call for the global order, a sharp reminder that the structures of power long taken for granted are shifting beneath our feet. For decades, the international system has been built upon the assumption that economic strength, technological superiority, and military alliances ensure stability. But that illusion was pierced in a single moment, when a drone from war-torn Yemen, a nation enduring years of economic collapse and humanitarian crisis, managed to breach the defenses of one of the world's most advanced military powers. It did more than shock Israel. It sent a signal to every government and global institution. The rules of dominance are changing, and no superpower is beyond reach. This was not simply a geopolitical event, it was an ideological disruption. The post-Cold War order, defined by the supremacy of wealthy nations and the subordination of developing ones, is eroding. The Yemeni drone symbolized something deeper, a global recalibration in which smaller, overlooked nations can now exert disproportionate influence. The balance of power that once favored industrialized economies is being destabilized by asymmetric capabilities, digital warfare, and the democratization of technology. The global order, once held together by predictable hierarchies, is now being reshaped by unpredictability. It is no longer a system controlled exclusively by governments, but one influenced by actors who thrive outside the conventional parameters of power. For policymakers, this event should serve as a sobering reminder that dominance is not the same as control. The same mechanisms that empowered the powerful, global connectivity, open technology markets, and economic interdependence, are now empowering those who were once marginalized. The attack on Tel Aviv underscored that the very infrastructure of globalization can be turned inward, used against the systems that created it. This is the paradox of modern power. The more interconnected we become, the more vulnerable those connections make us. Nations can no longer rely solely on military superiority or economic influence to maintain authority. Stability in the 21st century will depend on cooperation, fairness, and the ability to address the inequalities that fuel such conflicts in the first place. The shock felt in Tel Aviv resonated across capitals worldwide because it revealed a truth that many prefer to ignore, that anger, desperation, and resistance are no longer confined by geography or class. They travel as swiftly as data, and they strike where complacency is greatest. Yemen's act was not just defiance, it was a mirror reflecting the failures of a global system that prioritizes dominance over justice. It exposed how deeply fragile the architecture of international order has become when economic disparity and political exclusion go unaddressed. In every sense, the incident stands as a warning and a lesson. The global order that has governed for decades cannot survive on power projection alone. It must evolve, not through military escalation, but through empathy, equality, and reform. The world cannot afford to ignore the signals any longer. The drone over Tel Aviv was not just a weapon, it was a message written across the sky, a message that the age of unquestioned supremacy is ending, and a new, more unpredictable era of global reality has begun.